Hello everyone, how's it going? In this video, we're going to talk about Palantir, trading under the ticker symbol PLTR. The financial market has always been very volatile regarding Palantir and in general as well. So, as one of the most talked about and sought after stocks, we're going to go through this company and to see what it does, what it represents, the recent price actions, the financials, and my recommendation regarding whether it should be bought, sold, or held. As always, if you like what I do, please consider to drop a like, subscribe, and to check out my links down in the description. So, before we begin, I'd just like to state a brief disclaimer about what this video is and what it is not. This video is about my opinion and interpretations on how things are and will be. They're not investment advice and should be watched for entertainment purposes. They may be able to help you make more educated decisions, but they're not, or they shouldn't be used as the only thing you base the decision on. My analysis is done in the immediate past or just a few days prior. It's possible that by the time you see it, it no longer matches what the charts say. So this would still make the video relevant because we analyze the momentum for the days and weeks to come, and not necessarily in the hours to come. Also, the analysis will try to cover the stock as comprehensively as possible, so we're going to cover more than just the latest news and the price actions. We might talk about the company's financials, the stock market trends, the long-term perspectives, and the shareholders' behaviors. These are going to affect your decision regarding if you want to buy a stock, for how much you want to buy the stock, and how many shares you want to buy. Since most viewers would be watching my videos for the first time, it is very important for them to consider all these factors. So with that being said, let's begin with today's topic. Palantir is a data analytics company based in Denver. People, or at least people who have been invested in Palantir, have been very hopeful with what it might be able to deliver, not just to the investors, but to the economy overall. Data is one of the most precious and least understood resources modern companies have. And what Palantir wishes to accomplish is to make use of the digital footprint left behind by users and stakeholders in order to help companies to make better decisions, to optimize their operations, and to increase their bottom line. Palantir is also known to be very well introduced in the public sector, with some of their biggest clients being government departments in healthcare, defense, and law enforcement. The reason why this makes Palantir unique is because those contracts and relationships tend to be long-term, with guaranteed cash flows, and are testaments of deep relationships that could enhance in time. With that being said, the very nature of the company's business model has put Palantir in the tech sector and marketed as a growth stock. So Palantir is going to use its resources to grow and to give investors exponential growth in the years to come. This is typically what is sold to investors by tech startups, and they have also delivered on some of those promises. For one, Palantir's revenue did grow over time, and they have also diversified their activities. They have also upgraded their software, their software platforms. There have, however, also been a few setbacks. Despite the fact that Palantir has been in operations for many years before it went public, the operations are still not profitable overall. The cost of doing the service, the cost of doing the business, is still higher than the benefit, and this has been one of the bigger hurdles preventing its shares from reaching higher places. So, Palantir is also having an overexposure in the public sector, making it vulnerable to spending cuts when times are tough. This might have a negative impact on the company's profitability and on the market cap. Another thing is its own reputation. So, of course, the company deals with data. It might cause some privacy concerns, and people are very touchy-feely about privacies. So, this is why the company has somewhat of a mixed reputation when people talk about it, and this has also been reflected and confirmed in the conference calls. Its CEO stated many times that, people hate this company, but they don't have a choice but to deal with them. This is why they still have clients. This is alarming in my opinion, and they should clearly, put some efforts into addressing that issue instead of bragging about it. But that's just my opinion, The final issue is the unfavorable market trend. In other words, the amount of money in circulation. Simply put, Palantir needs a favorable investment environment for the investors to pitch their money in, and therefore to be willing to invest in this company. With the looming recession, raising interest rates, wars, QT, and all sorts of things, there are plenty of reasons for investors to just put their money under their mattresses. Investors don't have necessarily a lot of confidence in the future at the moment, and they prefer to put their money into safer investment options like savings account, bonds, or blue chips. Suffice to say that Palantir has been having a lot of downward pressure lately, and that those issues will take time before being resolved. In the meantime, gravitational pull would be downward still. Over the past 5 days, Palantir's price dipped below $7 at the closing of last Tuesday's trading session. This was highly alarming. Now, ever since then, I would say that its price stabilized at least above the $7 price. Is this a great news? Maybe not. Actually, absolutely not. We still want to see Palantir back above the $10 level before we can say that, oh, you know what, the bulls have come back, or at least in my book, that things have gone back to a normal course of actions. Right now, we're not. Right now, we're in a sell-off. Despite the fact that they have somewhat stabilized at $7, this isn't necessarily something that I would be very happy about. I don't want to see it stabilized above 7. I want to see it stabilized around 10. Of course, to each thing their own pace. I'm not saying that Palantir needs to go back to 10 by tomorrow morning, right? This is not something that I absolutely need to see, but it's something that I want to see before I put more money into Palantir, if it makes more sense. So now, if we look at Palantir's long-term price action, we must determine ourselves whether this company has a place in tomorrow's economy. We know that Palantir will not be profitable for another few years. That much we know and have already priced in. We know that Palantir is in a highly sophisticated and brain cells intensive industry. It wants to become like the analytics dashboard for some of the world's wealthiest entities, from both private and public sectors. So the true debate is whether Palantir itself can stand the test of time, and whether the market believes that it has potentials to become something that's much larger and critical for the world economy than what it is now. Palantir fell by almost 80% from the peak of the share price, from $35 down to $7 and something. Much of it is due to the overall market trend, and the rest is caused by doubts of the company's growth potentials and its own business model to work with government agencies. I personally believe that Palantir has been testing its bottom for some time, and that the downward progression has been very slow, ever since the price reached around $8 back in May. The rest of the downward slide is probably caused by the habit of going lower by default, meaning the stock will reach new highs eventually. Is it going to be soon? I don't think so. On the other hand, I do believe that Palantir will have a chance in the future, and that, the odds that its stock will go, the stock price will go up in the future is significant. Given that it's been down by so much, the only logical scenario is a price recovery once the storm is behind us, and this hasn't happened for the time being. As we look at Palantir's financials, the first thing that is noticeable is the positive gross margin. Above all else, this is a decent reminder that the company's core business seems to work. It is true that the revenue has been growing slowly over the past few quarters, sparkling some worries from investors. But the fact that the gross profit is still positive is a huge issue for me. Well, actually, not a huge issue for me, but like a huge thing for me. This is big. This means that the business model is scalable. It's relevant. It works. And that it shows that, Palantir has something to base itself on. We should remember that Palantir's revenue managed to grow despite the fact that the environment is very hostile, demonstrating that Palantir's clients are resilient and so are Palantir's products. This is a good thing for the company. The cash flow report also suggests that despite having a net loss due to the fixed costs, Palantir can self-finance a significant chunk of its operations. It has positive free cash flow at the end of each quarter, ever since Q1 of 2021. This means that the pressure of Palantir to go through rounds of share dilutions is relatively low, which is a good thing for the shareholders. So, another significant aspect to consider would be the liabilities that Palantir has on its own books. Currently, there are 933 million shares outstanding, which remains mostly constant and slightly decreasing compared to the previous quarters. This is also very reassuring, as it suggests that Palantir has been keen on having low leverage, and this decreases its own solvency risk. There's around 34% of institutional ownership right now. This means that we can invest into Palantir. There is enough recognition from the institutional side for the stock to be invested in. On the other hand, is it super high? No, it's not. And I would say that this kind of percentage, given the place Palantir should be within a few years, would either suggest that, one, not many institutional companies, they want to buy in at the current price, or two, maybe they even have doubts about Palantir's relevance a few years from now. So I think that it's the first one. They just don't think that the price is right just yet. Okay. But nevertheless, above 30% is a good place to be. And personally, I would say that the time for quick scalps is kind of gone for good, at least for the foreseeable future. Now, currently there are 4.2 million shares shorted against Palantir. Some may believe that this might show some potentials for a short squeeze. I don't think so. I think that this is just going to showcase that a lot of people believe the times are going to be rough ahead of us. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be in for a huge short squeeze. On the other hand, if the price goes up, a lot of these shares, I believe, are going to be compelled to be redeemed, which would accelerate the recovery. Okay, so in that sense, it can be a good thing. Overall, I think that Palantir is going to be able to make its mark in the future on a personal level. I think that its technology is relevant, and I think that it's here to stay. It's definitely a stock to invest in rather than to trade in. In the meantime, it should be treated with the anticipation that maybe the short-term price actions are not ready to recover just yet. I would wait for the stock to go back to $10 before committing more of my personal capital. But of course, if you don't have an exposure in Palantir at the moment, now can also be a time for you to start building a position. I would recommend to have a maximum exposure between 3 to 5% of your portfolio in Palantir.